My name is Scarlet Morgan, and today I will be speaking about my topic, Can we find a common ground? Specifically talking about the political divide that is currently growing more and more divisive, not only in the United States, but you see it internationally. And in our book, we read about the disgust that we now seem to hold for those who are on the other side. Is there an ability for us to find a common ground? Or are our values and ideals already cemented in our brain to where we can't hear what the other side has to say or what they believe in? In a study led by Red Montague and Virginia Tech, it was found that depending on your reaction, your brain's reaction to certain images, that they could determine what your political alignment was within a 95 to 98% accuracy. So, disgusting images, dirty toilet paper, maggots on infested food, etc., were mixed in with neutral images while the brain's reactions were recorded. Then, participants were given a political survey to measure their beliefs on hot topic issues such as abortion, DEI, social welfare, etc. And it was found that people with a stronger reaction to the disturbing images tended to be more conservative leaning than those who were not as affected based on their brain's reactions. The researchers aren't entirely positive why. There is a running hypothesis that it's due to what they called hereditary primitive notions, where the idea is anything that does not advance, again, in a primitive manner, does not advance society or the generation is removed. Materialism has always been around. Any civilization, you can find it. It's it's been there. The money and power and wealth has always been flaunted by those and regarded or envied by others. But now, with the last 40 years or so, we are interacting with explicit and implicit images from all angles. It is no longer word of mouth or letters. It's radio, commercials, social media, and then some, depending on how many accounts you have. Our culture has transitioned to where status and money and power means that you are successful and that you are a leader and someone to follow. So how does that compete with humanitarian efforts or creating a balance within our society and the upper and the lower regions? Is our brain able to process the desires of self-improvement while also staying empathetic to those that are around us in our community? There was a study done by Rodolfo Leyva through Qualtrics in 2017 where surveys were done. The exposure was to material marketing, and through the study, it was shown that it increased antisocial behavior and further pushed the I lone wolf narrative, dissatisfaction with one's self, their life, what they may or may not have, their job, where they live, their partner, and a stronger sense of materialism, what showed to be important to them. Within this study, Rodolfo found that the support for social programs providing low income and unemployed in Britain has declined steadily over the past 40 years, going from 61% in 1989 to 27% in 2009 and remained low at 30% in 2014. What's interesting about these, especially the last two numbers, is that this is post-2008 financial crisis. And during this time, from 2000 and 2014, the inequality, the numbers of wealth, the rich were getting richer while the poor were getting poorer, was 4 times faster in the 7 years post-crash compared to the 7 years before. So the gap is expanding, and it's expanding at a ridiculous rate. The commonality that lands with materialism and being anti-welfare puts us in a position where our brains are internalizing the messages that might or might not align with our personal beliefs. Our brains deal with metaphor mapping. Our unconscious mind uses all of the connections that we may not notice and certainly cannot control to process what we deem is our reality. For an example on the metaphor mapping, the metaphor intimacy is closeness. It's one of our core brain maps where we talk about how people can drift apart, people can be close to one another, they can distance themselves. As children, we learn that along with the intimacy is closeness map, that hugs are associated with those that we're closest to, our family members, our loved ones. We hug those who we're close to, and that aligns with what our viewpoint of intimacy is. And humans cannot all think alike because the metaphors are taught will be altered to what cultures or subcultures are raised into. So going back to the intimacy is closeness, hugs happening with those that are closest to us might mean one thing in one culture, but in another culture they add kisses on the cheeks, and it's just different, and it might offend someone that you didn't give them a kiss on their cheek, whereas my culture, it's not normal for you to greet someone like that. And continue speaking about mapping and metaphors and how our brain processes our reality. Morality is one of our main maps. We used a moral accounting metaphor, which is to settle a debt, so to speak. Morality has a strong influence, especially on today's politics. The issue is that it is an abstract and social construct. Its morality is grounded in what our personal experiences have been for our well-being. If something is good for us, we find it as being a positive and moral thing. If something is bad, if it took away from our well-being, then it's immoral, it's bad. If someone takes from your well-being, you have two options. You can have that person restore your well-being by doing something good for you, or you can take a piece of their well-being by doing something bad to them. And I think this truly just explains moral accounting metaphor in how our brain processes morality as just a good or bad, and how did it affect me. So how do metaphors affect politics? So based on which metaphor is given for a politician, a speaker, anyone, it can highlight or hide what they want you to then perceive. And if a message is repeated and then that metaphor becomes part of your map. It becomes your norm. If it's strengthened and reinforced by others who then have that same metaphor, if you're hearing that metaphor come from multiple places, it becomes further strengthened. So it affects the speaker and the listener, but it also tells you how you should not think. The alternatives then struggle to be processed and maintained in your mind. It's just survival of the fittest. So a great example for metaphor manipulation would be the death penalty. Conservatives tend to take more of a fall on the moral retribution in their policy. Again, we are talking about the accounting metaphor theory. And so in order to cover the debt of taking a life, now yours will be taken. For progressives, they tend to align more with moral restitution. You can make amends to society by paying it back through your actions, through making changes. A great quote from the research: with people believing that they are in control in what they think and not that the brain is processing different pathways, we are susceptible to reinforcing outdated beliefs and creating political realities as being our own. Our family life and how we are raised is our first experience with being governed. An authority figure teaching us right from wrong, left from right. It affects our viewpoints on morality, what it means to us, and what our realities are. A more conservative viewpoint is typically that success is from strong self-discipline and moral strength. So giving things that could help them is offensive because it takes away from a person's ability to sink or swim. It makes them weak-willed. So social programs like EBT, providing extra money for food, could be seen as a embarrassing thing that they were unable to provide for themselves or their families. Would it be? It's not looked at as a positive. Whereas progressives typically stand for a community well-being, taking on personal responsibility, but social as well. How we frame our values and how we use the metaphors mapped within our minds, how we discuss these and communicate these with those inside and outside our circles. I just want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you again.